This conference will now be recorded.
Hey everyone, welcome to Software Testing Online Training, Week 3, Day 10 session from techtrainersonline.com. In today's session, we will talk about test plan and as well as the defect management, and also try to understand what is the difference between defect management and the change request management. So let's start with the test plan. So test plan is a document which is prepared by a test lead or a test manager. So most of the time it is going to be prepared by the test manager, and it all talks about what are the activities that we are trying to do as part of our testing, like you know what types of testing we are trying to do, what are the different tools we are using for the test management or defect management, what are the automation tools we are using, and all what are the resource management, what is the timelines of the deliverables of the testing activities. So what are the deliverables what we are going to deliver? All this information is going to be detailedly written in the test plan. So once the test plan is prepared by the test lead and or the test manager, it's going to be sending to the client for the review, and the client is going to review your test plan, and then they can provide their comments. Based on the comments, again, you guys have to, when I say you guys, the test manager has to work it on to incorporate the review comments given by the client. So in order to understand, test plan is a document which consists of all the information related to testing, like what are we what are we going to test, what is in scope for us, what is out of scope for us, how about the resource management, when to stop testing, entry criteria, exit criteria. All this information will be detailedly written in your test plan document. So when we talk about in scope, like say that you guys are working for a bank called Citibank is the client, and the bank has given to test this application, and bank has the two different systems like debit card management and credit card management. Let's say that you are working for a company called Accenture, and your client is the Citibank. I'm just giving an example. So Citibank has the two things. One is the debit card management system and as well as the credit card management system. Let's assume that the Citibank has given the debit card management system for testing to the company called Accenture. And credit card system is given to the credit card system is given to the another company called, let's say, IBM. So the company, your client has given the system to the testing for different companies, one for Accenture, one for IBM, right? So what are we guys going to do as part of the test plan? So what is in scope for me? Do you guys think that credit card management is in scope for me? It's not in scope for me, right? Because it's not given to Accenture. Assuming that I'm working in Accenture and I'm writing a test plan for whatever the client called Citibank I'm working for. So when I say in scope, I'm clearly writing that debit card management testing will be in scope for testing. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is the debit card management testing will be in scope of testing. I'm not talking anything relevant to the credit card management system because it's not in scope for me. It's completely given to another company, so where I'm not responsible for that particular module of the Citibank. So when it comes to the browsers and operating systems, we talked about the compatibility testing, right? So we learned what is compatibility testing, and what we need to consider in the compatibility testing. So in the test plan, we are also going to document what are the browsers that we are going to use and what are the operating systems that we are going to use as part of in scope of our testing. So the testing will be performed in below browsers: IE version with IE6 and above, and Google Chrome version with 42 and above. So I reach out to the client and asking that which version of the browser or what are the different types of browsers that you are expecting us to do the testing, and we can go ahead and do that. That's what we are trying to document it in our test plan. So what are the operating systems we are trying to consider? Testing will be performed in below operating systems. Like one is Windows with the version 2008 and above, Android version 2.0 and above, iOS 3.0 and above. I'm just given some version number for the sake of example. It can be any number. So these are in scope for us. Debit card management system is in scope. IE 6 and above version is in scope for testing. Chrome with version 42 and above is in scope for us. And operating systems like Windows, Android, and iOS are in scope for us. So what is out of scope? So credit card management is out of scope for us because we are not working on it. The client has given it to another company, right? So browsers and operating systems other than above is not in scope for testing. I listed out what is in scope for me. Anything that comes outside of versions or browsers, whatever is mentioned, is not in scope for me, which is called as out of scope for me. So we clearly list out what is in scope for testing and what is not in scope uh, for testing. Also, we need to document it in the test plan so that tomorrow, if some customer is using very old version of the browser, let's say IE4 or IE5, and if it is application is not launching or having some issues in the older version of the browser, if they call to the customer care executive will always tell that which version of the browser you're using. If the customer says I'm using IE4 or IE5, the customer care executive straight away can say that our application is not compatible in the old version of the browsers. So please upgrade your browser so that our application is compatible with your system. That's what exactly we are going to discuss, because tomorrow I don't want client to come back and say that it's not working in IE4. So I can clearly show this document indicating this is what we have agreed and this is the version and the types of browsers what we have agreed. So it is not in scope for us. Straight away you can reject any defect that is coming relevant to compatibility issues. Okay, let's move on for the test environment. We discussed about the different environments yesterday, right? So like we have test environment, UAT environment, pre-production environment, and production environment. So this test plan is always prepared by the test manager, right? So this is applicable for the system testing. So we also call this document as system test planning. So when I say test environment should be set up and access should be given to the testing team as well to development team. So what I'm trying to say is, if my testing team has to start the doing testing, I'm saying that the test environment setup is ready and all the testers has the access to the test environment to use it, right? So generally the testing team will be given with the login credentials to the test environment, and where tester can go ahead and log with the test user IDs that are created. I think we already discussed what is test environment in previous session. Okay. And then we are also mentioning what are the different types of testing that we are trying to do for this particular application, right? So what we are trying to do, we are trying to do the regression testing. So I'm also trying to elaborate more what do you mean by regression testing. So in this testing, we consider end-to-end flow as part of regression. We plan to do this testing through automation only. So as mentioned, regression testing, we are trying to cover end-to-end flow and through with the automation, right? So that's what we are trying to do. That's what we are trying to do as part of the regression. I don't want client to come back and say that, what is not covered in regression. I'm clearly defining, I'm going to do the regression testing and it is going to be end-to-end flow, that too with the automation only. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? End-to-end flow means the core of the system. Like if you take a banking example, it basically starts with login, creation, register an account, login into the account, right? And then do all the transactions, right? You create an account, log into the account, reset the password, you know, use the forgot password and see it is working fine, and logging into it, add the beneficiary, transfer the funds, delete the beneficiary, change the PIN number, generate an instant ATM PIN number for your debit card, and make the credit card payments or debit card payments. So this is what exactly called end-to-end flow. So you're trying to touch base with every functionality of the system to make sure that core of the system is working fine. That's what I mean to say. End-to-end flow is considered as part of the regression, and that too we are going to do it with the automation testing only. Any questions on this types of testing regression? I'm also mentioning that I'm going to do the sanity testing. We also perform the sanity testing, functional testing, installation and uninstallation testing, if applicable. Now, let's say that you guys are working for a product-based company, and let's say your client is Microsoft, and you guys are, let's say that you guys are working for MS Office is your product. So you have to buy it through online, or you have to buy it through the CD, and then you have to go through the installation process. So if you guys are working for this kind of project like this, so what are going to do is we are going to do the installation and as well as uninstallation testing also as part of types of testing. And when it comes to the automation, we clearly mentioned that regression testing we are going to do with the automation only. So in automation, what are we going to do in automation? We are saying that we do functional automation and non-functional as part of automation. I'm clearly saying that I'm also going to do the performance testing, which we already discussed. Even performance testing also falls under automation. So when I'm talking about the automation, I'm trying to clearly define what is the scope for automation here, right? So what is my scope for automation? My scope for automation would be functional automation and as well as the non-functional automation testing, which I'm going to do it. So then I'm talking about what is the tool I'm going to use. Selenium is the tool which will be used for functional automation testing. I'm clearly mentioning that what is the tool that I'm going to use as part of my functional automation testing. And then load runner is the tool which is used for the performance testing. So I'm also clearly defining what is the scope for automation. Scope for automation is functional and non-functional automation testing. For functional, which tool I'm going to use. For non-functional, which tool I'm going to use. So this is what I'm trying to define it in the automation testing, right? And moving on to entry criteria. Entry criteria, what do you mean by entry criteria here? Any idea?
Entry criteria like in case of Facebook, we have taken example in that like age is a criteria that 18 should be covered.
Okay. So entry criteria means when can I start my testing? When can I enter into, when can my testing team can start doing the testing? So that would be my entry criteria, right? So test environment setup should be completed. A test environment setup should be completed. So I wanted my test environment should be developed, and all users, I mean, all the testers got the access to it, and their user credentials are created. Unless the test environment is not set up, I would be not able to do any testing. That's the entry criteria. And testing team provided access to this environment, right? Testing environment. And all the test scenarios and test cases are prepared and ready for execution. So I don't want testing team to do the testing without test cases. So what I'm trying to say is all the test cases should be prepared. All the test cases should be prepared and they are ready to execute it. And test cases are reviewed and approved by client if applicable. So what are we trying to say here? The test cases, whatever, as said, peer review will be happening once you guys prepare the test cases. There will be a peer review once the test cases are prepared, and other guys are to review. Sometimes even client also going to review your test cases. It differs to client again. It's not 100% that every time client will review. So if client is reviewing, and make sure the test cases are reviewed and approved also. All the tools related to automation is purchased and ready to use. I was talking about automation. I will be using the load runner. So load runner is not a open source. It's not a free of cost. It's a licensed version where you guys have to go and purchase the uh, tool. So what I'm trying to say is load runner tool is purchased and it is ready to use. And the next one, test management and defect management tools are purchased and ready to use. So what I'm trying to say is the test management and defect management tool, as discussed, we write the test cases in the test management tool, and we raise the defects in the defect management tool. So there are plenty of the tools available in the market, right? And most of them are the licensed version where you guys have to go and purchase it, right? So typically, whenever you guys are going to use the test management and defect management tool as a test manager, I need to make sure that I purchased license for the using the test management and as well as the defect management tool, and it is ready to use for the team. And again, login credential should be created for all the testing team members and as well as to the defect management tool also. Team got all the relevant KT on domain. Now, let me give an example. If you guys are working for a banking application, there's a banking is one domain, insurance is another domain, healthcare is another domain, e-ticketing is another domain. So you guys will be working on in a project which belongs to the different domains. Maybe today I'm working for banking application. It's known as a banking domain, right? And tomorrow I'm going and working on insurance domain. So what I'm trying to say here is, as part of my entry criteria, team got all the KT related to domain. So if you guys go and talk about insurance, there is something different terminology of the words will be used. They say that what is a copay? Do you guys know what do you mean by copay? It's nothing but how much you have to pay and how much insurance company will pay for it when you claim for insurance, right? So some people say that 2080 is the copay. So we need to understand the terminology of the words specific to the domain in which you guys are working in. When I say copay, so 20% I have to pay. So that is known as a copay. So banking also has their own terminology of the words, like due to this COVID, and banks are ignoring it's not ignoring, banks are giving an opportunity for their loans. What is the terminology that used? I am not recollecting that. You can postpone your EMIs, right? Moratorium, something. What did the word they use? So you also need to know the terminology of the words that are used in banking domain or any domain which you guys are working in. So nowadays, no client is providing the banking domain training. Earlier, when I was working for one of the biggest MNC company, and it is purely for the banking applications. They were very famed for banking applications. Most of the major banks are their clients. So whoever is joining in that company, as part of the joining formalities, they used to provide a KT on banking domain, because you will be placed only on the banking application. So is the KT is given on the domain or not? That's what we are trying to talk about here. But it has become a complete non-requirement nowadays. No one is giving a training on the domains. Right? Team got training related to test management and defect management tools. As said, we have to purchase the test management and defect management tools. And maybe you are working test management called Test Link today in one of the project, and you are moving into another project where they are using the another test management tool, right? So generally we would expect some KT means knowledge transition. So generally we generally explain to the team members whoever is joining to the project on the test management and the defect management. All these things should be ready. Then only I can go ahead and start my testing. This is known as the entry criteria. Any questions on entry criteria?
In short, sir, that we are making a complete platform for testing the product which we have to test, right? Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Uh, yes, sir.
Yeah, I think there was disconnection of the internet. It's restored now. Yeah. Yeah, Ankush, you were asking some question.
Sir, in short, in test plan, we are creating complete platform that like a product will come and how to test and which are the different steps. Everything is should be ready. Means like it is a complete creation of environment, right?
Yeah.
And sir, the second thing is regarding you had told us about functional testing. Like in functional testing, we are using Selenium for automation and performance testing for load runner, right? But
Correct.
in case of test management tools, which are the sir, which are the different test management and defect management tools?
Like you have a test management, like a test link, QC, quality
Okay.
control. For defect management, you have Zira, Mantis, Bugzilla, TFS. There are so many tools available in the market.
Jira is a defect management tool.
Yeah, you can use Jira for raising the defects also. Jira is
Jira Memo.
mainly, yeah, Jira is majorly used for agile kind of project management stuff. But you can still go
Okay.
ahead and use Jira for the defect management also. So we will learn Jira tool in detail. So with this today's session, we are done with the manual testing, and we'll be completely working on the tools management. Like what is the test management tool? We try to install test link and try to explore, create the test cases. I mean, execute the test cases in the test link, and then raise the defects in the defect management tools like Mantis or Jira. So from tomorrow, I mean, tomorrow or from next week onwards, we'll be purely working on the tools management.
Okay. So sir, like you told us that these are licensed version. So whether it's crack version is available.
Trial version will be there for 1 week or so. TestLink is not a licensed version; it's an open source, free of cost. We can download
Okay.
and
Test.
use.
Okay.
But when it comes to Jira or Mantis for the defect management tools, they are not free of cost, but they give you trial version of 1 week or 2 weeks. So we can use that for 1 week or 2 weeks just to explore how it works practically.
Okay.
Okay. So exit criteria, what do you mean by exit criteria? Hope you are clear with entry criteria. Opposite to entry criteria is nothing but exit criteria. When I have all these things in entry criteria, I would go ahead and start doing the I would go ahead and start doing the testing. And it's a exit criteria. When can I stop my testing? As simple as it's mostly interview asked question. When do you think you guys can stop your testing? So when all test cases are executed and 95% of the test cases are passed, this number can be slightly changed. This number can be slightly changed here and there. Someone will say 95 and someone will say 98%, someone will say 90%. It differs to the client to client, and we need to discuss with the client and understand what is the criteria that you are looking for. We have written the test cases, we are going to execute the test cases. What is the percentage of the test cases you think? What is the percentage of the test cases you think that we have to mark it as a pass? Then we can stop the testing. So we are saying 95% of the test cases should be passed. No test cases are in blocked status. So we also discussed what do you mean by blocking a test case, right? When do you think you guys will block a test case? We discussed it, right? When do you think you would block a test case? We discussed yesterday, I think previous session, where we'll have a three statuses of the test case, right? One is passed, one is failed, one is blocked. When do you block a test case? So whenever you see the dependency test case is not working, I am going to block my current test case. Example, funds transfer. I cannot transfer the funds until unless I add a beneficiary. There is a defect in adding the beneficiary. So I would not be able to transfer the funds because the adding beneficiary is not working at all, right? So that's called as a block. I don't want any test case should be in blocked status, right? And all the defects with critical, high, medium, severity defects are closed. I don't want any defects which is kept in open with the severity of critical, high, and medium. There can be low severity defects. We will discuss what you mean by severity in today's session itself, so don't worry. So there should not be any defect which is kept in open with the severity as critical, high, and the medium. There should be zero defects with these severities. So that's what exactly called exit criteria. Let me add one more point. There can be max of 5 defects open with low severity. You can still have 5 defects open, and there can be a system with the defect, but should be very low.
Sir, we are not able to see your screen, sir. Current
Rajat,
screen.
Yes, sir. Yes. Wait.
let me stop and share it again.
Yeah,
Okay.
fine.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, as part of exit criteria, there can be max of 5 defects open with low severity. That's what I meant to say. You can still have a defect in your system, max of 5, and some people will take 2 defects, some people will agree with 4 defects, some people will go with max of 5. So no client is going to take the system with the defects. Okay. So, but that can be okay. You can still go ahead and release the system with the defects, but they should be low severity defects. That should be my exit criteria. So exit criteria, if someone is asking a question, when do you think you can stop the testing? That would be your exit criteria, what is written in the test plan. Mostly interview asks question, when do you think you can stop the testing? The answer is as per the criteria that is defined under exit criteria in the test plan document. That would be your answer. If someone asks again, what is the exit criteria that is defined in your plan? So this could be your answer. These are the 4 points you can highlight it. Any questions on entry criteria or exit criteria?
Sir, client will generally say, na, sir, ki, the execution of test cases should be 100%. Then,
I didn't get your question.
like we are saying, sir, that 95% of test cases are passed, right? So
Yeah,
maybe the and or it depends on the client to client. So the client can generally will say, na, sir, ki, it should be 100% test cases should be passed.
yeah, they can say.
Then we have to go for 100%.
Correct. Then that is the case. This will work, right? No test cases in block state means all the test cases are executed. Then
Okay.
there should not be even a single defect also, because if you have a 5 defects open, 5 test cases are failed.
Yeah. Okay.
It differs to client to client.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's move on for the risk. What are the risks we have? So every project will have some risk. Risk is something that may happen and that may not happen. So what do you mean by a risk? Which may happen, may not happen. We don't know, but we are predicting there could be a risk here. So if this risk is going to happen, what is the mitigation plan for the risk, right? So that's what we always talk about, the risk here. Now, what is the risk from the testing aspect of view? If there is a delay from development team of delivering to testing team will lead to slippage of committed release date to client. So what do you mean by with this statement? Now let's say that the December 31st is the date when we have to release it to the client for the testing to user acceptance testing. Now what did we consider? It's total 1 year project. Out of 1 year, 9 months are given to the development team, architecture, and all the stuff. But 3 months time, we estimated for the testing, where the testing team will take, you know, October, November, and December. These are the 3 months we are planning to take it. So when I'm saying 3 months I need to take, I generally expect October 1st is the time when I should get my system for the testing team. So it should be given to the testing team on October 1st, so that I can spend 3 months time, October, November, and December. And I committed to that client that December 31st, what we are delivering your system to UAT. Now there is a delay from the development team. So what is the time they should give you for the testing team? In October 1st. But what is happening? Let's say that they have delayed for 2 weeks of time. Instead of October 1st, let's say they have given you on October 15th. What will happen? So testing team will not have sufficient time of testing estimation. 3 months we agreed, and we agreed 31st December what we are delivering it to the client. But if you do not see 15 days, if it is not delivered on the October 1st, so your testing team is losing the 15 days. So why should I cannot go and tell to the client, it's all internal team, development and testing both are from the same company. I cannot complain about my team to the client, right? I cannot tell that their team did not give me on time, so I can't deliver it to you on time. So we cannot say that. So there is a risk. I said it may happen, it may not happen. If there is a delay from the development team to delivering it to the testing team, if there is a delay, then what are we trying to say is that it would lead into slippage to the UAT date what we agreed with the client. So for every risk there should be a mitigation plan. What do you mean by a mitigation plan? If the risk is going to happen, how I am resolving that particular risk, right? So mitigation plan will be testing team needs to work on weekends to cover the delay. Are you guys getting what I'm saying? I wanted my testing team should go on work on the weekends to support that 15 days delay, so that I am on timeline and committed for the dates that I have agreed with the client. So I'm also going to highlight that particular risk in the test plan. Any questions on this particular risk, the first one? It's not only on the weekends. Team can even stretch more, daily 2 hours extra, rather than 8 hours, work for 10 hours and cover those number of hours that are delayed so that you meet it on the time. Client will not agree. It's altogether your team. You guys go ahead and fight internally or do whatever you wanted to do it. You agreed to deliver it on 31st. You'd give it to me on 31st. That's what clients stick to it. Okay. So the second one is the resource management. So what if resource becomes sick and will not be available for a week? Now we said the first risk can be from the development team. If they are delaying, it's a testing team, it risk to the testing team, and we cover it by stretching extra hours or the weekend. Now what if resource becomes sick and will not be able to work for a week of time? So I estimated 8 hours for every resource. Based on that only, I come to conclusion 31st is the date I need 3 months of time. Now, what 1 week if the resource is not available? How many number of hours per day you work 8 hours per resource? Then 40 hours gap in there, right? So if the resource is not coming for a week due to sick or some personal reason, there could be anything, right? If that particular resource is not available, there can be a risk. So what I have to do is I have to mitigate this risk. Now, if I've given it to tester who is on unplanned sudden sick or goes personal emergency on leave, I have to assign the tester 1 work to tester 2, tester 3, and tester 4. So I have to distribute this 40 hours of work and make sure that it is being delivered. That would be the mitigation. So what if resource got some personal emergency and will not be available for a week? That's what we just discussed now. And another risk is too many defects. So what will happen if there are too many defects that are raised from the testing team? That we discussed, right? What would happen if too many defects? Like in the previous session, we said on the test metrics, 40% defects are being raised. It would be high time consuming than the expected for the development team and also to the testing team. So where the team has to keep fixing the defects and testing team also has to keep retesting the defects. So that would lead again into the risk of my deliverable timelines. So this will lead into slippage of deliverable timelines. We need to make sure thorough testing is done by the development team before it's coming to the testing team. Any questions on risk before moving on to next one?
No, sir.
Okay. Let's move on for the deliverables. So deliverables are nothing but what are we delivering it to the client? We are delivering the test plan document. We are delivering the test cases. We are delivering the test summary report. We are delivering the automation script. So whatever the test cases I have automated, I generally write the scripts for that, right? So I delivered that particular script. So that's what exactly the deliverables which we are giving it to the client as part of my regular deliverables. Okay. So that's all about the test plan. Any questions on the test plan?
Yes, sir. That automation script. Sir, automation script is like generally a code, na?
Yeah, it's a code.
Sir, then why we are going to deliver it to the client? Is it necessary? Because we are going to do the testing, so it is in our scope, na?
No. Let me give an example. Like say you're working for a client, okay, and you targeted for 6 months testing, right?
Yeah.
And they have end-to-end flow, okay.
Yeah.
Now automated the end-to-end flow. Let's take the banking application, creation of account, logging into it, transferring, blah blah, whatever the end-to-end flow you have it. You already automated it. Now your project is over.
Okay.
So even though project is over, small client will have small minor changes and they are managing themselves. Okay, they have very small team and there are no much scope for giving it to other company for outsourcing. Then they are managing with 2 developers. and one tester. Minor changes they keep getting it. Production defects they are getting in, right? So they have to still keep fixing it. So whenever they are modifying the code, they wanted to make sure that automation scripts are executed. I'm no more with the client now. I'm done. So when I'm done, when I'm saying I'm done, I have to deliver my script to the client so that they keep executing the automation regression suite for their product. What you will do with keeping the automation script with you? Nothing. Is that clear your doubt?
Yeah.
So we always
Okay.
deliver our automation script to the client and so that they can go and run it whenever they want it to make sure no impact on the particular system. Let me give you an example. Did you guys hear something product called Salesforce CRM? Salesforce is one of the CRM product, right? Now, Salesforce is a product or a technology, what I would say rather, and my application is completely developed on the Salesforce. Let me give an example. I'm done with the project and everything is done. So Salesforce is going to enhance their product. When I say enhance their product, it's ongoing product. Okay. They have some releases called like winter release, summer release, for every quarter they have a release. So when I say every quarter they have a release, they are keep on adding the new features to their product. And due to their product enhancement, it might impact to the my project because I use the technology, right? So what I wanted to do for every quarter, it is scheduled every quarter Salesforce releases this particular release. It's a planned every year. So since my application is developed using the Salesforce, because their product, which is called Salesforce, is getting upgraded every quarter, I have to make sure it is not creating defects in my application. So what I would do, I would run these regression scripts just to make sure nothing is broken. Okay. So anytime we have to give our automation script to the client only. We can't keep it with us. If you think we need to keep it, client will definitely ask give it to us. So we have to deliver it to the client. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Let me know before going to defect management. Okay. So what do you mean by a defect? Defect is something which is not working as expected. So as long as you see something is not working as expected, what are you going to do? You guys are going to raise a defect. So defect management process is all talks about what happens when you guys create a defect and how it flows after that. So that's what we are going to talk about, the defect management. So most of the time tester is going to raise the defects when they are doing the testing execution, whatever the test cases are prepared by them. So once they start the execution of the test cases, they go for raising the defect. So what happens once the defect is raised? To whom should I assign the defect? Can developer reject the defect? If so, why they have to reject it? Can tester can accept why the defect is rejected? So all these things we are going to talk about the defect management. So for raising a defect, we have defect management tools in the market. Like I said, Jira, Mantis, Bugzilla. There are so many tools available. TFS. There are so many tools available in the market. Every client will be using some different tools, right? So as you're moving on to the different projects, you will be moving on exploring the different defect management tools also. So it doesn't mean that if I have 1,000 defect management tools in the market, it doesn't mean that I have to learn all 1,000 defect management tools. Answer is no. You don't need to learn that. The most of the defect management tools are similar. If you guys learn one defect management tool, and remaining are going to be exactly similar. Here and there, slightly there could be difference. Like label names would be different. Some one or two fields will be extra added, something like that, but not more than that. Now, before raising a defect, what tester needs to consider is like before raising any defect, the tester has to consider the severity and priority of the defect. we will talk about what is severity and priority. And before to that, the tester for sure needs to check is there any duplication defect exist in it. Okay. Now let's say that you're working for a Facebook application. Now you wanted to test all the features of the Facebook. So what is the minimum thing is required? Login, right? Can you do any testing without logging in?
No, no.
So most of the features in the Facebook, like sharing the video, commenting, uncommenting, blocking, confirming the friend request, raising the friend request, all these things comes only after you guys logging in, right? Now I have 20 testing team members who are working, and all these 20 team members have been assigned with the different test cases. But for all of these testers, one common test case is logging into the Facebook. When I say logging into the Facebook, whatever the test cases that are being assigned, I have to log in first, irrespective of the test case. Someone might be publishing the video, someone has to test it with the commenting it, someone might need to block a friend, someone might need to add a friend request. These are the different test cases what they have. So when they have all these test cases, the first thing is what they need to log in. Let's say that after entering the valid user ID and password, the system is not allowing the user to log in. There is a defect. So do you think all the 20 testers to raise 20 defects? It's one defect. So why you think you need to raise 20 duplication of the defects? Are you guys getting what I'm saying? So we don't need to raise the 20 duplication of the defect. So any tester going to raise a defect, first we need to check that there is no duplication of the defect exists. We need to make sure there is no duplication of the defect. As an example, I don't want all 20 testers to raise the 20 defect. So then how do I know whether duplicate defect exists or not? Every defect management tool will have an option for searching the defect, right? You just go and search with the defect. Now login is not working for me, right? I just go and type in the search keyword as login failed or not allowing to log in, something like that. So based on your search keyword that you have entered, it is going to take all the, it's going to display all the relevant defects to it. You need to check which is relevant to it. If there is no defect exists, then go ahead and raise the defect. The first thing what tester has to look at is there any duplication of the defect? The first thing. And the second thing, the make sure you attach the screenshots as much as possible. Now there is a spelling mistake in the error message, so it's a bug for me, it's a defect for me. So when you guys are raising that particular defect, you need to attach the screenshot. The developer need not to come to you and asking that show me the error message on your system. So attach the screenshots as much as possible so that it is easier for the developer to understand. That's the one thing. And the second thing is try to attach the videos also. If applicable, you guys can record the video when you are doing the testing, upload that recorded video so that the developer whoever is looking at the particular defect, it makes easier for understanding. I was working for one of the client who is a major bank in US, and I was involved in doing the ATM testing. You guys know ATM, right? So insert a card, enter the wrong pin, blah blah blah. There are so many test cases which are there. I was testing those test cases. I cannot capture the screenshot on ATM machine, right? If I'm doing it in my system, I can click the print screen and take the screenshot and do it from there. But when it comes to something example like an ATM machine where I cannot capture the screenshot, so go ahead and record the video. I was doing the recorded video and place that recorded video in the defect. That's even allowed to do the video recording also. Okay. And when you guys raising the defect, provide detailed steps as much as possible. So what I'm trying to say, provide detailed steps as much as possible, and also provide the test data that is used for raising the defect. right? Now, let's say that Darshri found a defect and she's going to raise a defect saying that even after entering the valid user ID and password, system is not allowing to log in. Let's say that you are working for a bank and you are entering the user ID and password. Both are correct. You are clicking on sign in. System is saying that please check your user ID and password, enter correct user ID and our password. That's a message what she is getting in. So she can go ahead and raise a defect, but what I'm saying is she need to capture the error message what is getting in, attach it to the defect, and then give the user ID and password that is used to logging into the system for which she is getting that error message. Why I'm saying the test data, this is called as a test data. You should give the test data for which you got that particular defect. So when I say I got the defect for logging in, I need to give my user ID and password. Now, if the Dhanashree is giving the user ID and password in the defect what she used for which she is getting a defect, and then you assign the defect to the developer. When the developer investigates, developer tries to replicate the defect. Developer tries to log in with his credential. System is allowing to log in. Then what is the problem? Is the problem with the system or is the problem with the test data here? What is the problem, guys? Developer is able to logging into net banking, but Dhanashree is not able to logging in. Is the problem with the test data or the problem with the system?
Problem with the system.
Problem with the system, but I am able to log in with my user credentials, but you are not able to log in. Which means, now let me give another example. I'm going to ATM machine, I'm inserting my ATM card and I'm getting money, whatever I'm entering for withdrawal. Now, Dhanashree, you go to the ATM machine next to me and you insert your card. It says your card is invalid. Is the problem with the machine or the problem with the card? For me, it worked. For you, it is saying no. System is saying your card is not valid. Then there is a problem with your ATM card, which is nothing
ATM
but your
card.
not with the system because it is allowing to log in, right? It's not a problem with the system. So that's why I'm mentioning you need to provide the test data. So why I'm saying you have to give the user ID and password. The developer logs in into the system, he is able to log in and do everything. But with the user ID that you have given in the defect, they are not able to log in. When they went and check it in the database, your account is locked. Assume that you or someone tried your user ID and tried wrong password more than 3 times, which you are not aware about it, and you keep entering the same password, but your account is locked and system is not allowing because the backend your account is locked. What developer can say? Developer can reject your defect, stating that the system is working as expected. I am able to log in. The user ID that you use to log in is being logged in the backend because of invalid wrong passwords that are entered more than 3 times. So do you think it's a defect or it's a problem with the test data the tester is used? It's a test data that's problem which is used by the tester. So that's why I'm trying to mention you always include your test data for which you got a defect. Maybe something wrong with my test data, I don't know. So put the test data so that it makes easier for developer to investigate whether it's a problem with the test data that is used by a tester or it's a problem with the system. Okay. So these are the things you guys have to consider before raising the defect. I repeat, what needs to be considered before raising the defect is, first thing is check if there is a duplication defect. If defect already exists, do not raise it. If no defect exists, raise it. Check for the duplication of the defect. Second thing is attach the screenshots as much as possible, for better understanding. If applicable, attach the videos also, if it is permitted. So before uploading, before recording and doing the stuff, check with your supervisor. Don't do it directly. It could be into policy violation. You're not supposed to record client system or something. We don't know. So don't take that. Talk to your this supervisor. Is recording videos can be uploaded. And then provide detailed steps to reproduce. So I need to provide what are the steps I have to follow in order to reproduce the defect so that the developer can reproduce the defect. And another thing is provide the test data that is used while getting the particular defect. So these are the things that you guys have to consider before raising the defect. You also need to consider the severity and priority of the defect, that anyhow we are going to talk about it. Okay, so let's understand the severity of the defect. So we said in the test plan, what did we say in the test plan? In the exit criteria, we said defects with critical, high, medium severity. Now we are trying to understand what do you mean by the severity here, right? So severity means severity of the defect is decided based on how severely it is impacting to the system. So we need to understand, if I found a defect, how severely it is impacting to my business. So based on how it is impacting to the business, you need to decide the severities. Most of the defect management tools have common severities called critical, high, medium, and low. So I'm also defining what do you mean by a critical. I'm also defining what do you mean by a critical. Critical means if the defect is showstopper, it's completely blocking to proceed, having huge financial impact. So if I see any of these things, now I'm typing facebook.com, it says page cannot be displayed. Do you think it's a critical, or it's going to be a medium or high or low?
Uh, Low, because sometimes internet issues are going on. That's why also.
You have all the internet and everything, right? All are working fine. Other websites you are able to launch it. There is a problem in the server which is not responding to your facebook.com. So do you think it's a critical defect or low defect or medium? It's a critical for me. Is it blocking or not? It's blocking entire testing team to proceed, right? Do you think you can
Yes.
proceed to do any testing without launching the application?
No.
It's a critical
Critical.
severity because it's a showstopper. It's completely a stopper for entire team. It's a completely stopper for the end user also. They cannot use it, right? And also, if you see there is a huge financial impact. Now you're transferring funds of 1,000, it is transferring 1,000 rupees, but it is crediting, it is debiting 1 lakh rupees from you. Let's say that then you are transferring 1,000 rupees to me, and I got 1,000 rupees only, but when it comes to your account, it is deducted 1 lakh rupees from your account. It is what it is doing. Additionally, it is adding 2 more zeros in the end. Is that correct? So it's going to be a critical defect again because it is hugely impact on the financial system. Do you think you will be happy if it is deducted 1 lakh rupees from your account instead of 1,000?
No.
Obviously,
It's
it's a huge finance loss to the customer, right? Customer will definitely go upset, and they have to call to the customer care, and customer care guy has to investigate and then refund 99,000 rupees back to your account. So as long as you see defect is severely impacting, like showstopper or a blocker, or having huge financial impact, you go and select the create defect as a critical. So every defect management tool will have a drop down or a pick list. It's loaded with the values for called critical, high, medium, and low. So what is happening here? When you click on create new defect. Anyhow, in tomorrow's session, we will try to discuss defect management tool. I can show you what I'm talking. When you click on create new defect, it asks you to select the severity. So it's a drop down in which you guys see all these values are loaded. So you need to select the severity based on the defect, what it is severely impacting. Okay. So if you see whatever is defined here, right? If you see whatever is defined under critical, you guys can go ahead and mark them as a critical defect. Now, what is high severity? Having direct impact on the customer, or one of the core functionality is not working. So we discussed the types of test cases, right? GUI, functional, and field level validation. Any test case that is marked as a functional test case is not working means I can straight away raise the defect as a high defect, severity as a high, which means like say adding the beneficiary is one of the functionality. You are not able to add because some defect. So in that case, you go ahead and select the defect as a high severity. Now I clicked on transfer funds. Nothing is happening. So means it's a functionality itself is not working. One of the core feature of the system itself is not working. Then you can create that particular defect as a high severity defect. Okay. And the next one is the medium. Not having impact on the functional side or not impacting to the customer, like slight difference in displaying the error message. So the defect that doesn't fall under critical and high generally comes as a medium. So there is a spelling mistake. Then I would go ahead and raise the defect. Spelling mistake will not come as a medium, it will come as a low end. So medium means the client requested to display an error message if user enters the wrong password more than 3 times. They wanted to display if you enter wrong password more than 3 times, your account will be locked. That's a client asked. But what developer has implemented, your account will be locked if you enter wrong password more than 5 times. So what is being asked? 3 times. What is being displayed? 5 times. It's misleading and misguiding to the client, right? Account is still getting logged after 3 wrong passwords only. Functionality is working, but the error message is instead of 3, they are displaying it as a 5, right? I can consider that as a medium defect. It is working fine. Functionality is working fine. What is the functionality? Account should be locked after 3 wrong password. It is locking. But the message what it is displaying is instead of 3, they are displaying it as a 5, which is misleading. I can consider that defect as a medium. And the last severity is low. Like color is not displaying as expected, or capital letter is missing, the label, or spelling mistake. So anything relevant to alignment, spelling mistakes, color issues, all these minor things would come under the low severity. So I repeat again, all the defect management tools will have severity and priority. You have to select that particular value from the drop down when you guys are raising the defect. And some tools will have, other than this what I am talking about, some tools will have only these 4 severities. Some will have more than this. So that's what exactly the difference between one tool to another tool. Any questions on severity of the defect? Okay, let's move on for understanding the priority of the defect. So priority means priority is decided based on urgency of resolution for a defect. Now let's say the testing team raised 20 defects. Do you think all 20 defects should be fixed immediately?
No.
So priority is going to define me which defect to be fixed first, right? So priority means the defect that needs to be fixed in urgency basis. So like we have P1, P2, P3 and P4. P1 is nothing but priority 1, priority 2, priority 3 and priority 4. Some tools will have the same priority and severity and priority will be the same. Now we are talking critical, high, medium and low. Priority also can be have same critical, medium, high and low. Right? It differs to tool, but most of the tools will have P1, P2, P3 and P4. So when I say I have to raise a defect as when I say I have to raise a defect as priority 1, which means it has to be fixed immediately. So I'm also giving the definitions of P1, P2, P3. What do you mean by P1? Fix is required immediately. If I'm selecting, this is again drop down. It will be loaded with the values. It's again drop down. It has to be loaded with the values. So you have to select the specific priority based on your defect. So if I'm choosing the P1, it has to be fixed immediately. What do you mean by fix required immediately? Do you think that I have to fix in 2 minutes of time? No. So if you guys remember, if you guys are aware about SLAs, do you guys know what do you mean by SLA? I think maybe Ankush you might aware. Do you know what is SLA?
Yes, sir. The time given to complete the task.
Yeah, service level agreement, what we talk about. So we are going to have an agreement with the client, which we call it as SLAs, service level agreement. If someone is raising a P1 defect, what is the timeline by which we have to fix it? If a critical and P1 defect is coming from the production, so what is the SLA to be fixed in? SLA means what is the timeline that you have to fix it? So if I say P1, most of the time SLA for the P1 would be is like, SLA for P1 would be 24 to 48 hours. Any defect that is coming as priority 1 should be fixed within 24 to 48 hours. It generally differs to client again. I don't say 24 hours or 48 hours. So that's how you guys are going to agree with your client. So you have to define your SLAs with the client, and then you need to proceed according to that. So when I say P1 is raised, it doesn't mean you have to fix it right away. Even developer needs some time to undo the analysis, why it is happening, debug it, understand it, and fix it. Even tester also needs to retest the defect. It's time. It takes time, right? So you can't ask fix it immediately. So P1 fix required immediately doesn't mean immediately. It takes generally 24 to 48 hours of time. What we have agreed SLAs with the client. P2. Not immediately, but required in the next planned release. Now I'm raising a defect called P2. It doesn't mean I have to fix it immediately. Not even in the current release. I can consider it in the next release that is coming in after 15 days or after a month. I can keep that defect open, concentrate on working or fixing of the priority 1 defects, which is the first priority for me. Once I am done fixing of all P1 defects, I would go for the P2 defects, right? And then P3 and P4 normally not planned for any release, but will be fixed in future releases. Any defects P3, P4 priorities may not require to fix in the current release, but it will be considered to be fixed after P1, P2 defects are being fixed. These are the priorities. Any questions?
Yes, sir. Sir, can you say that the defect due to which the tester is blocked that comes under P1?
Sorry?
And sir, the defect due to which the tester is blocked that should come under P1, right?
Yeah, P1, yeah. That is while
Yeah.
doing the testing.
Okay.
But any defect that is coming in the production, let's say that you are using your ATM card, even after entering the valid user ID and password, ATM has taken your card inside. That's a P1 also for me, because the customer is not allowed to do any transaction, and also customer's card is taken inside the ATM machine. It's obviously P1 should be fixed immediately. That is coming from the production. It doesn't matter from where defect is coming in, but you need to understand the urgency of the fix. If it has to be fixed urgently, then choose the P1. Okay. Now I want you guys to do the analysis that can I have, I'm just giving it as for you guys to think about it. Can I have critical severity equal to critical and priority equal to P3? I'm saying it's a critical defect for me, but I'm saying P3 don't fix now. We will see it in future. Can we have some scenarios like that? That's one thing. And second thing, I'm saying severity equal to low. Okay, I'm saying severity equal to low, and I'm saying it's a P1 defect for me. Fix it immediately. Do you guys think it's not going opposite direction? I'm saying severity is low, but critical P1 I'm saying, priority I'm saying P1, fix it immediately. Do you think it could happen? Think about it and let me know in tomorrow's session. Okay. So let's try to understand the defect life cycle. So what do you mean by the defect life cycle? So every defect management tool has the different statuses. Different statuses is nothing but, once you raise a defect, what is the status of the defect, then how it moves on. Now, whenever you guys raise a defect, typically it will be in the proposed, slash new. So whenever you guys raise a defect, it would be in the proposed status. Some tools will have status as proposed, and some tools will have the status as new, right? So what do you mean by a new or proposed? This is the status when defect is newly created by the testing team. Like say you found a defect, you raise a defect, the status of the defect would be new. Then the defect status will be changed to triage. Now, once you guys raise a defect, to whom you have to assign? You need to assign it to a developer or assign it to your test lead. Again, it differs to the project to project. If it is very small team, okay, if it is very small team, you guys can go ahead and assign it directly to the developer. If it is a big team, there is a separate role called defect lead or defect manager role, and that would be given to defect lead. Once you guys found a defect, raise it, and then assign that defect to your supervisor or to your test lead, and your test lead looks at the defect, and your test lead finds all correct and this is valid defect, then your test lead is going to change the status of the defect as triage, which means that team lead or defect lead reviewed your defect and ready for discussions with the stakeholders. So if I have a 20 members testing team, once defect is raised, I would not directly take it to the developer to discuss. I'll schedule a call, which we generally call it as a triage meeting. So where I generally call it as a triage meeting, where we have once in a week or twice in a week. So I will consolidate all the defects that are raised by the testing team and make a meeting called triage. In that meeting, discuss all the defects which are in the status called triage, which means the defects are really ready and it can be discussed with the stakeholders, nothing but the development team. In this defect triage meeting, client is also going to involve. And if the developer and tester is arguing, developer is saying it's not a defect and tester is saying it's a defect, then client involves and clients to put their opinion whether it's a defect or not. If client says it's a defect, we have to fix it. Then active. So first it starts with new, then it goes to triage, and then it goes to active. If the development team is agreed it as a valid defect. So once the defect is agreed, the status of the defect would be changed to active. Then it will change you to, then the defect status would be changed to in progress when the developer is working. Maybe I have 100 defects raised, but development team will not be working all 100 defects at a time, right? So they keep change the defects to in progress, whichever the defects they are working in. If you see any defect status is in progress, it means that the team is working on fixing it. The next one is resolved. Once the development team fixes the defect, they can resolve it, change the status to resolve, and give it to the testing team to test it. Give it to the testing team to test it, and tester is going to test it. So forget about deployed. Forget about deployed. We will talk about. You can ignore it completely. So when I say resolved, it is fixed by the developer and ready to test. Now reopen. What do you mean by reopen? Now I'm a developer. I fix the defect and I assign it to the tester. And once the tester is testing the defect, right? Once the tester is testing the defect, they still find the same problem. You can go ahead and reopen the defect. What is the status of the defect? Resolved. From resolved, it can be changed to reopen or it can be changed to closed. As a tester, once it is being fixed, I retest the defect. Once I retest the defect, if I see it is working fine, then I change the status to closed. I'll mark the defect as closed. If it is still having the same problem even after the fix, I go ahead and reopen the defect. If multiple defects are getting reopened by the testing team, it's not a good indication to the development team. They are not properly fixing the defect, or they are not even testing the defect once they have fixed the defect. That is called as problem with the development team. Why they are not fixing it properly? Why so many defects are getting reopened by the testing team? Now you also have one more status called rejected. So what do you mean by rejected? Now tester raises the defect. I just gave an example of, let's say, I was saying that Dhanashree has raised a defect where she is not able to log in with user ID and password. We discussed that there is a problem with the test data, right? Do you think it's a defect? Because others are able to log in, but only for her credentials, it is not allowing to log in. Because account is locked, straight away developer will investigate it and straight away can reject the defect with the valid rejection reason, saying that it's a problem with the user credentials that are used. It's locked. I unlock the user now in the back and try to log in and retest and close it. It can be rejected. Developer can even also reject the defect. It doesn't mean that he or she should accept every defect that you are raising it. So that's where the defect is going to be rejected. Rejected by the development team, stating not a valid bug. Due to it can be a duplicate also. Like Ankit and Dhanashree both raised the same defect with the different IDs, right? So I can keep one defect active and another defect I can mark it as a duplicate and reject the defect, right? And it may not be reproducible. Now I said an example user ID and password where she raised a defect, it is not allowing to log in. It's not reproducible for other users. So I can straight away reject it. Are working as expected. So when the developer is rejecting your defect, you either it can go to close status. Now I'm a tester, I raised a defect. There is a duplicate defect which is already raised by Ankit. Sorry, someone else in the testing team, and then they can go ahead and reject the defect saying that it's a duplication of defect and assign the defect back to me. What I can do, I can see the rejection reason and I can straight away go ahead and close the defect with a rejection reason. It doesn't mean that the developer is giving the rejection reason, tester has to listen. No. If you are not conveyed with the rejection reason, again change the defect to triage so that you can go ahead and discuss with the developer. So these are the different defect life cycle, generally what we call it as. Any questions so far?
For this life cycle, there is a tool because if we do manually, then it's very time consuming process.
You cannot change the status of the defect. It will not change on its own. You have to change it.
Okay.
So let's say you raised a defect. By default, the status would be new. You don't have to select any status first time when you are raising it. Then assign it to me. I change as a defect lead or a test lead. What I would do, I change the defect status to triage. Once I discuss with the development team, once they agree, I'll change the status to active. If they are not agreeing, I will go and change the status of the defect to rejected. So you would be doing it manually. It will not do on its own automatically. You have to do it. Okay. Any questions? So I repeat the question again. Can I have a severity equal to critical and priority equal to P3? One case. And second case, I have one defect severity equal to low and the priority equal to P1. Can I have this thing? You guys can think about it and let me know your answer in tomorrow's session. I think I would have already detailedly written in my blog also. You guys can refer to the blog. Okay. And let me know if you guys have any questions. Okay. If no questions, let's stop it here for today and we'll catch up again tomorrow. Bye for now. You guys can stay.